Yeah, all right. What we got today? We've got Melody Maker, May the 29th, 1971. I was 11 years old. I'd never really heard of David Bowie at this point, so I was in my very formative music years. I was getting into music though at this point, hence the reason I was buying Melody Maker then. So we will come across a few singles in here that I bought then and I've still got because I don't sell records. And one of them is one mentioned on the cover here. Peel, that's John Peel, hits that BBC drug ban. And it says, John Peel hit out this week at the BBC's decision to ban Mungo Jerry's latest single, Lady Rose, because one of the tracks on the maxi single, Have a Whiff on Me, refers to drug taking. At press time, the Melody Maker learned that Pi, who distribute the Dawn label, had substituted the band track for another Mungo song, She Rode, taken from the group's album Electronically Tested. But over 50,000 copies of the original single have been pressed and will be sold despite the BBC ban. And I've got the original one with Have a Whiff on Me on. I've actually got 4 or 5 Mungo Jerry singles from 71 to 72. And the interesting thing about Mungo Jerry was, totally uninteresting to you lot, but they always had a picture sleeve, which is in 1971 was really unusual, particularly as they were on Dawn, which was a small subsidiary of Pi. But they always had a picture cover, and they always did maxi singles too. But there we go. Anyway, a little article there, little piece there about John Peel standing up for the drug references in popular music at the time. The other thing at the front, now Clapton band splits. This is Derek and the Dominoes. Eric Clapton's group Derek and the Dominoes broke up last week after a row in the studios. Not particularly interested in that, to be honest, so we'll pass that by. The charts, now as I say, I'm thinking if I was buying Melody Maker in May of 1971, there'll be singles in this chart that I have. And in actual fact, I've got in my huge amount of boxes of singles, I've got a box which I call important early singles, which are mainly from 71. So let's have a look. When I say important, I mean important to me from a nostalgic point of view. So let's have a little look and see what we've got. The singles charts, number 1 was Knock 3 Times by Dawn, which at the time seemed to be number 1 for bloody years. Number 2 was Brown Sugar by the Stones. Number 3 was Indiana Wants Me by Ardeen Taylor. Of course, his most famous hit was There's a Ghost in My House on Tamla, which, of course, Indiana Wants Me is too. But There's a Ghost in My House is a Northern Soul classic. The remainder of his stuff was basically singer-songwriter-ish stuff, which had nothing to do with soul. Number 4, Molten Barley Blues, McGuinness Flint. Number 5, Heaven Must Have Sent You by the Elgins. Now, I was having a chat with a mate last week who, not a chat, but a slight exchange on eBay, on Facebook, I beg your pardon, where he does soul, northern soul and reggae club nights. And he posted an Elgin song, and I said to him, do you remember when the Elgins played at the community centre in my hometown of Clevedon? And he said he didn't remember. I can really remember it. It was about 1975. And they really must have dipped in popularity to be playing a community centre in a small West Country town. Number 6 was My Brother Jake by Free. I bought it. Number 7, Jig a Jig by East of Eden. Bristol connections there. I bought it. Number 8, It Don't Come Easy, Ringo Starr. I bought it. Number 9, Double Barrel by Dave and Ansel Collins. And I have a theory that that's the greatest single ever written, because everybody loves it. No matter what your favourite sort of music is, everybody loves Double Barrel. Everybody dances to Double Barrel. And the interesting thing here is, I've mentioned this before actually, it wasn't Dave and Ansel Collins, as in brothers. It was Dave and Ansel Collins. And it's the first time I've ever seen a music paper get it right. They've put Dave / Ansel Collins. Good for them. I am, I said, Neil Donovan. Let's sort of run through them. What else did I buy at the time? Good old Arsenal, by the Arsenal first team. I didn't buy that. Didn't I Blow Your Mind by the Delphonics? I bought that. Hot Love, T.Rex. Of course I bought that. My first love was Mark Bolden before Bowie. As were several of my friends at the time. It's strange how in 1971, if you're into music, you were either a T.Rex fan or you're a Slade fan at this point in time. And myself, Don Whiston, Mark Hartnell, Rich Beale, we're all T.Rex fans. And then most of us, became Bowie fans. Pay to the Piper, chairman of the board. I'm Gonna Run Away From You by Tammy Lynn, another Northern Soul classic, and one of my favourite ever singles. Rosetta by Fame and Price. So all those singles I bought. This was probably bang on when I started being seriously into music. Number 1 in the album charts was Sticky Fingers, Stones. Number 2, Tamla Motown Chartbusters Volume 5. Great series. And interestingly, number 5, an album I was playing earlier today. And it's interesting, I wasn't aware they were that popular then. Number 5 in the album charts is Split by the Groundhogs. And the Groundhogs were, I always call them the most underrated band of the early 70s. But if they were getting to number 5 in the charts in May 71, they clearly weren't that underrated. Memory plays tricks with you, doesn't it, really? America's top 30 albums, number 1 was Jesus Christ Superstar. America's number 1 single was Never Say Goodbye by the Jackson 5. Let's move on from the chart, spending too much time on that. Groundhogs. The Groundhogs US tour has been postponed due to the general unrest in the States and the demand for the group in this country following the success of their current album Split. It's a fabulous album, Split. It's something that it's one of the rock albums that crosses over between pre-punk and post-punk, and I know many people who hate with a passion early 70s rock that love Split. It's a bit of a one-off, to be honest, and if you don't know it, buy it or listen to it at least. The Paul LP you'll never see. This is Paul McCartney, his first album together. Ram, this is Paul Linda, and a mixed reception from critics, have recorded a second album, but no more than 1,000 copies will be pressed. Don't know what that's all about. I really liked Ram. So it's a great album. That's all a bit boring. Grateful Dead, due to come to Britain for an open air concert, have cancelled. 4 members of Free, who disbanded last week, are holidaying before announcing plans for their individual ventures. Johnny Cash, the new album, I Walk the Line, the original soundtrack recording, not the I Walk the Line. It was a classic film from the last few years. America, Jazz, Manfred Mann, Barclay James Harvest, we'll pass all that by. Rory Gallagher, who was another great of the early to mid 70s. As far as British, if we can call him British, he's Irish, or was Irish. In my eyes, people always talk about the great guitarists as being Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck. I reckon you can add Rory Gallagher to that. For feel, for emotion, a fantastic guitarist. Sadly deceased, like so many others. Not much there. New pop singles. Let's see what other ones I bought here. Gary Wright, Roger Spear, Ray Stevens, Richard Barnes, Tudor Lloyd. Who the hell? Graham Nash, Sweet. Bloody hell. First hit single here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13th one listed, Black and White by Greyhound. Chart reggae. It was on Trojan, and Greyhound were much better than that. But that was a hit single. The previous 12s weren't. Carole King, It's Too Late. Medicine Head and The Pictures in the Sky. That was a hit single, though not as big a hit as they had with 1 and 1 is 1, of course. Oh, blimey. A lot of non-hits there, without a doubt. And here's a full-page ad for Heads, Hands and Feet's first album. They were sort of a British Little Feat, if you like. And one of their members on bass guitar was Chaz Hodges, as in Chaz and Dave. There's some good Old Grey Whistle Test footage of Heads, Hands and Feet playing, and Chaz is there with his long hair and his big mutton chops. Chaz Hodges, bass guitar, played in rock groups backing Gene Vincent and Jerry Lee Lewis, also played with Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers. And it gives you a little similar synopsis for each of the other members. The most famous up until then, well, up until Chaz and Dave had their first hit single, the most famous member of Heads, Hands and Feet was Albert Lee, the great blues guitarist. And then as soon as Chaz and Dave had hits, Chaz usurped him. Pop albums, Cream of the Strawbs from the Witchwood. No, not great. Edgar Broughton Band, self-titled. Lovely picture of Edgar Broughton Band. Total stoners, absolutely brilliant. Proto-punk in the extreme. I cannot praise them enough. Out, demons, out. Ha! Fantastic. Mailbag. T.Rex, the shine has worn off. This is probably someone complaining about T.Rex going electric, a little bit like people did with Dylan in the 60s. Let's have a look. I have witnessed the final deterioration of an original highly polished band. I refer with sadness to Tyrannosaurus Rex. I have admired them right from the days of Deborah, but I do not know how Mark can call what they are doing a natural progression. T.Rex used to be streets ahead of all the other so-called progressive groups who lash hell out of their equipment. Blah, 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 blah. He just doesn't like him being a bit of a pretty boy teeny bop idol, does he? That was Steve Blaney of Eccles in Lancashire. There. Letter about the Groundhogs. Jazz scene, no thank you. Audience, no thank you. Caught in the act, who's playing live this week or the previous week? Steel Eye Span, King Crimson, Grease Band, Third World War, another proto-punk band. And again, if you've never heard Third World War, I suggest you investigate immediately. Fantastic stuff. Back in the mid-70s, sort of 76, 77, where I take a weekly trip into Bristol to go trawl around the second-hand record shops, you always used to see Third World War albums there for pennies. Nobody wanted them. And it's clear that in the early 70s, the freaks, if you like, or the hippies had bought these Third World War albums and got bloody terrified by them, so sold them quickly. And you could buy them for pennies. They're tens, hundreds of pounds in good condition now. Mountain, Big Fat Leslie West. Blind Date. This is we've talked about it before, where they get an artist to review album tracks. And this is Dave Arbus from East of Eden, Bristol boy. And he's reviewing album tracks by Mountain, Tired Angels from the album Nantucket Sleigh Ride. Why the bloody hell didn't he review the title track, which was the theme tune to, what was it? the Sunday Weekend World, the Sunday current affairs programme. Like it or not, it's a bloody classic theme tune. Curved Air, It Happened Today, probably the only other Curved Air track I love, apart from Backstreet Love. Robbie Robertson interview, Robbie Robertson of the band. Oh, and Rick Danko from the band. They've all gone now, other than Robbie himself, haven't they? Contemporary classical music, Stockhausen. The Rise and Fall. Oh, the Rise of the House of Usher. That's Rise of the House of Asher. That's Peter Asher, ex of Peter and Gordon, who had moved into management. Pink Floyd, a half-page ad for Relics, which was a bit of a cash-in on their early stuff. A compilation that was a massive seller, and I remember everybody in the early to mid-70s had it. And it was our introduction to early Pink Floyd. Great stuff. Syd Barrett era Pink Floyd, of course. More jazz, no thank you. The tape boom. This is going on about how 8-tracks are taking over. I really don't think so. It's a bit like Betamax videos, isn't it? Big, clumsy cartridges that you pushed into the machine. Yeah, 8-tracks. And it carries on with the next couple of pages too. It's actually not just concentrating on 8-tracks. It's cassettes as well, which were pretty new. So we got an advert here for a cassette player, very similar to the first one I got. A Philips cassette player, which of course had a separate mic that you sit in front of the TV when Top of the Pops came on, with the mic in front of the speaker, taping the songs you liked. News from the heart of the music scene, another little bit about Mountain. Any questions? How many musicians are in East of Eden? They're very popular in this issue. And which instruments they play. I've always wanted to be a roadie, but I just don't know how to go about it. A little thing about Sounds of Heavy Arsenal. This is Arsenal Football Club. How often would you get that in a music magazine, eh? Focus on folk. Folk forum, and here we got the gig pages again. Let's pluck a few names out, interesting ones. We got Mungo Jerry, the Grease Band, Alex Harvey, pre-sensational Alex Harvey Band. Oh, not a lot here actually. Juicy Lucy, a lot of rock bands. Black Widow, who were sort of folky rock, so say devil worshippers. They had their most well-known song was called "Come to the Sabbath." Come to the Sabbath, Satan's here. So they were sort of contemporaries of Black Sabbath and ploughing a similar furrow, but they weren't heavy, so to speak. The Faces with Rod Stewart, Argent, Stone the Crows, Wishbone Ash. A lot of rock. Oh, nice one. UFO's Revenge, and I want to say UFO's Revenge, but this was the club on Tottenham Court Road where famously Pink Floyd and Soft Machine played and what have you. This is an International Times oblique Friends presentation, which was the Underground Press. Friday 28th of May at the Sisters Club on Seven Sisters Road, and the lineup was Hawkwind, Mighty Baby, Come to the Edge, Films, Lights, Sounds, Food Theatre, The Good Stuff, and Dwarf Boggies, whatever Dwarf Boggies may be. So some interesting gigs going on that week, but not a lot I'd have been queuing up for, I have to say. Let's have a look on this page. Slade were playing at the Horn Hotel, Braintree, Essex. Alton Ellis from Jamaica, the fabulous Alton Essex, at Q Club in Paddington. Ten Anog, Irish folkies, one of my brother's favourites, never really got into them, all a bit whimsical and shite for me. Stackridge, local West Country boys. Thin Lizzy were playing at the Country Club in Kirk Levington near Middlesbrough. The Pioneers, Traffic, Emerson, Lake and Palmer at Drury Lane Theatre, no thank you. More pop albums, classified ads, Music Market, and on the back a very plain ad for Grand Funk Railroad's 5th album, Survival, who never made it in this country, did they? They were probably, at this period of time, late 60s, early 70s, the biggest band in America, and they never cracked the UK. There we go. We'll leave it with Grand Funk Railroad, never cracking the UK. Bye-bye.
Mark Talks Max. Mark Talks Max. Mark Talks Max. Mark Talks Max.